What's up, everyone, out on the World Wide Web? My name is Jesse, and this is Riley. Now, this is Riley. We are old-time friends.
Childhood friends, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. We met up at college, and we decided we discovered that we were interested in a lot of those same things still.
Yeah. A lot of those same kind of themes of the storytelling aspect of through movies and a lot of the same sort of fun aspects of how we interacted when we were kids, like, is still relevant today, which is kind of fun.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's like it's eerie. It's like looking in a mirror. Like
Yeah, I was talking with my wife. I was like, it's so odd to me how, like, me and Jesse have not seen each other since we were probably like 8 years old, and now we are reunited, and it's like nothing has really changed. And it's like, how is it that this guy has so much in common with me? Like, we haven't even seen each other for years now, and it's awesome. It's fun.
Yeah. So today we wanted to talk about a certain topic. The topic being, what makes you rewatch movies, or what makes you reread books?
Mm-hmm.
Like what brings you back? What draws you back? What aspects of stories is that?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, as soon as we started thinking about this subject, I had four ideas that just kind of came to mind. The first was plot, and then the second was the visual beauty and aesthetics of a movie or the world that you're going to be reading, and then as well the world immersion, which I believe are two separate ideas. And then the third was, what was the third one?
We got characters.
Characters, yes, that's a hugely important one. So yeah, those were
Absolutely.
I think those four are what we're kind of going to discuss today. Four reasons that will be coming back to movies and whatnot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, plot is the main structure of a story, right?
Yeah.
So without plot, you don't have a story. Of course, without characters, you also don't have a story.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't have characters that do nothing.
Yeah.
You have to have events that occur that pushes a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, what's the one of the best plots you can think of?
So I am unabashedly and unashamedly a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. That to me is one of the greatest stories that has been created in English literature, and also to the big screen. There's a reason why The Return of the King has won so many awards, and it's not just because of all of the movie making magic that is involved in there, but it's also the story itself. Like, why the story of the Lord of the Rings, of that journey that has to be taken, that hero arc that is made by so many characters within the film, and then as well the story of not going to get something but to return something. That's what makes the Lord of the Rings different compared to other stories. It's giving the evil back to where it belongs, instead of going and trying to conquer it, or to try and to take something from it. So there's a lot to that, and that story, I feel like, in and of itself, is what brings a lot of people back to rewatching them. So
absolutely. And I think also Tolkien, being a Christian, he put a lot of thought about Christian mythology, if you will, into the story. So a lot of it's based off of his real life experience with Christianity.
Yeah.
So being able to take that information, or take that belief, and put it into a story, I think is really awesome too, regardless of what religion you are.
Yeah. And I think one of what makes Tolkien's idea of that movie, of the Lord of the Rings, the books first and the movie obviously, is how, like you said, we see both sides of humanity, our history, especially that of European history. We see the pagan and mythological beliefs of these ancient peoples that eventually get overtaken by Christianity. And Tolkien does a great job in the books, and then I feel like Peter Jackson in the movies as well does an awesome job of sort of taking the noble traits of the mythological world
Mhm.
and having them sort of be sanctified in Christianity, like
Yeah.
in that way, sort of showing that the good that that older pagan world has to offer, and as well that of the good that comes from the Christian world, and he kind of melds those two together, and that's why so many people can relate to this, because we have that ancestry of from both sides. A lot of those who have that English ancestry that
Like both of
he
us do.
yeah, like it's both of us definitely, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why so many people can relate to it, because they see both elements of who they are as a
Mhm.
person in that movie. And
Yeah.
so,
I think that's really important though. Like being able to see yourself in a story,
mhm,
being able to see yourself is immensely important.
mhm.
That's one thing about characters
Yeah,
that is very important. Um, like for instance, the archetype, the everyman.
I'm not familiar with it. You have to
Okay,
explain it.
so
Yeah.
the everyman is the character that everybody supposedly can relate to.
Mm,
So Harry Potter
for
is
sure.
is
Yeah.
an everyman, where
Mhm,
almost every person can see themselves in that
mhm.
character. So when you watch it, you're just like, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. Everybody feels like an underdog. So like that's what Harry is at the very beginning. He's
For sure.
living under
Yeah.
the stairs with his aunt and uncle,
Mm.
um, where they feel like they've always had that. People feel like underdogs most of the time, I'd say.
Most, yeah, and that's what makes for like, if we're gonna go for Harry Potter, the characters of Harry Potter are not one dimensional characters, and Harry himself is like you said, so relatable for so many of us because of that aspect of that being the everyman. We can all sort of project who we are onto Harry, because he's not a particularly he doesn't have any traits that necessarily make him that much different from most
Mhm.
of us, average people. So
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, there is a weakness to the everyman, but ultimately I think the everyman is going to be a forever stamp. Like
mm-hmm.
there's always going to be a story, a modern story that's going to have an everyman character,
Yeah,
so we can relate. And then there's the other relatable characters that are not
yeah,
like us.
I think we all see a little bit of ourselves in Ron or in
Mm,
Hermione, or even even at times in some of the minor characters like Hagrid or
Neville.
Neville. Yeah, exactly. Like, and they're likable too.
Mhm.
That's, I think, one of the reasons why I will definitely come back to the Harry Potter movies and rewatch them, because of the characters in there that are just so likable.
Mhm.
Without having that kind of that interest in the characters, we were just earlier today we were discussing about how Marvel, a lot of the plots that are in the Marvel movies in the MCU are not necessarily new. We've seen a lot of them in other films and other stories before. It seems like often just the names and the places kind of get changed, and we've seen this. But the reason why we come back is not because we haven't seen a time travel movie before,
Mhm.
but because we want to see what Iron Man, what kind of quippy things he'll have to say about this, or what kind of epic moment Thor will have, or what kind of action sequence we're going to be able to see with Star Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Or seeing Captain America wield Thor's
So,
hammer.
things, yeah,
So,
we come back because we know and love these characters and these
mhm.
people, and we like to see how they interact, because it inspires us to want to be like that in situations if we were ever confronted with some of them.
Yeah, and I think like we all, like I said, projecting yourself, and as far as the superheroes go, you want to project yourself so you see yourself as Thor or Captain
Exactly.
America, Iron Man. Like we see our like a little bit of ourselves in those characters.
Hmm.
Um, so without that, like I mean, there are relatable like unrelatable characters that are entertaining. For instance,
Thanos.
Thanos. I think he's a great character. Have you seen the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes?
I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, like he's a high functioning sociopath. He says,
Mm.
which for me, that's very entertaining because like he's like you take a trait and you dial it to 11.
Mm-hmm. And you're able to see an exaggerated version of possibly something that's in yourself or
Mhm.
something that is in someone else, and it just becomes so fun to watch
Yeah.
because it's like you said, it's so dialed up to a new level and it just makes it so very entertaining.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to visual. What visual things do you like seeing that makes you return to it? A story?
So I mean, we've already discussed the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the MCU, and if we're going to complete I feel like the pop culture arc here, I feel like Star Wars would have to be involved as
Yes,
well, and
absolutely.
the visuals of Star Wars are one of the reasons that
Oh,
I'll rewatch them. Even we all know that the trilogy that had Anakin and Padme falling in love, that those three were not the most well written
yeah.
of all of the
I
Star
don't.
Wars
I
films.
don't think Lucas knew how to write relationships.
No, and I've heard that in a book form it might make sense, but on screen that wouldn't really. It just
Mm,
doesn't work as well. But with the visuals that were given in that
mhm.
movie, and I'm not talking about the CGI because that hasn't aged that well, but I'm talking about the beauties of the planet that Queen Amidala or
Naboo.
Princess Naboo, like of
Mhm.
Naboo, or the stark contrast of the desert planet and the ice planet and all of
Mhm.
these and the Mustafar system, is that right, where they have
Lava
their
planet.
that big lightsaber battle at the end,
Mhm.
like you just can't help but be sucked in when you see
Yeah.
things like that because you just forget all about the bad writing and the plot because you're just like,
This is
wow,
awesome.
this is fantastic. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen something this visually stunning in a long time. So
Yeah.
I feel like that is something that will bring people to rewatch movies
Yeah,
often.
absolutely. And I think Star Wars keeps on getting nominated for visual, like high quality
Visual
visual
aspects,
effects.
yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. Plus, lightsabers are just
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to have a lightsaber? Like,
Yeah,
I don't think, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you see that thing, you're like, I want that.
yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
cool. Like, yeah, like it's a
Mhm.
visually beautiful weapon,
Tool.
tool, yeah, whatever you want to call it. Like, something that they use in those and so, and the aliens themselves are interesting and intriguing to
Yeah,
see. You're always wondering what kind of new weird people we're going to
it's always
meet.
kind of gritty too.
Yeah, there's that sense of like this is a real kind of world, and
Mhm.
that this transitions well into our next
Yeah.
topic, which is the world immersion, which is the reason why I think a lot of us will return to movies.
Yeah, oh yeah. World immersion. For me, like for instance, Harry Potter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually find that how that they set up the Harry Potter houses,
Mm-hmm.
how it's a way for me to structure my mind around. Like
Mm.
just like, oh, you're a Ravenclaw, therefore I should treat you like this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not fair, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but
but
that's how I help process it. So that helps me to become immersed into it. Because like
mm-hmm.
seeing all those examples of what a Ravenclaw is, or a Gryffindor, or heck, like Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
Jedi, Sith, or hobbits, or
Yeah, I this is for me probably one of the most important reasons that I will rewatch movies is I've had movies that enjoy that I've seen once or twice and I thought they were good, but I don't have as much of a desire to go back to them. Whereas I have others, for example, the Pirates of the Caribbean
mm,
movies. They Hollywood there has created a niche in which no one else has really tried to step foot into. Like
yeah,
the world of Pirates of the Caribbean is totally unique. We have the characters, we have oftentimes usually a decent plot. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to follow or kind of written strangely, but overall those are decent. But the real reason I think I often come back is that feeling of like I am in the whatever century Caribbean
yeah,
that took place
17th
in
century, yeah,
17th century Caribbean, that
yeah,
whether or not that's what it actually was like or not, they have
mhm,
created this feeling that now I can very easily imagine myself in that place and
mhm.
time. I can almost smell the briny sea
Yeah,
when Bootstrap Bill
mhm,
approaches Captain Jack Sparrow, or you can almost feel that warm Caribbean
mhm,
breeze or the warm water. You
mhm.
can see it, and then you've also got that gritty grimy, just that dirty time period,
Yeah.
like where everything seemed to be slightly green or brown,
Yeah.
and just they create this world that you can dive into
Yeah.
and feel like you're actually in a. It's that sort of escapism
Yeah,
idea,
exactly. Well,
and Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potters do that amazingly.
yeah, absolutely. And I think a whole big thing about that too is two things I can think of. For me as a sociologist, it's all about culture.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a culture within the story.
Yeah.
So you have Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's based off. I mean, it's a real life, based off a real life culture, right? The pirates and all those things.
At least our romanticized image of that,
Exactly.
for sure. Yeah, it's based off of something that at one point existed in.
Yeah, even if it's an imaginary culture like Star Wars, like there is a culture, there's a philosophy behind the Jedi or the Sith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second aspect is the iceberg effect, where there's more details behind what you actually get in the story itself. So you have a whole lot of supplementary materials that come outside of the story.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the old website Pottermore, right?
Yeah.
You get like J.K. Rowling is always like putting out more things about her world.
It connects you and makes you feel like you're part of this world, even though it's not even real. It's real to those who are involved in it. You know, like that is something unique. You know, when you meet someone who's a diehard Harry Potter or a Lord of the Rings fan, you know, you've both visited the Wizarding World. You've both been to Middle Earth. You know, like, and even though
I've been there too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when you say the Shire, you have an image that comes to mind because both of us have been to the Shire through reading or watching the movies time and time again. You know, and we're familiar with that space in our mind, even though that place sadly doesn't actually exist. You know, what a shame. I mean, there is the Hobbiton in New Zealand, which I would die to go to
bucket list.
Yeah, bucket list for sure. But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I think we got to wrap it up today. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe and leave a comment about why you think you revisit stories. Now remember, it's not what you watch, but how you watch it that makes you a scholar.